Well, we could go back to those Kuyperian realms, spheres, and we could say, well, God has ordained the sphere of the family. Check, we're involved in that. God has ordained the sphere of the church. Check, we were involved in that. God has ordained the civil realm. We spend all of our time in church and family every night of the week or in our free time. What's becoming of the civil realm? Where's the salt and light there? Where is Jesus at the table there? Why do we throw up our hands and wonder why our culture is such a mess if we've abdicated from being salt and light in one of those three realms? And so the responsibility lies with us, and it requires a rethinking of what we're here on earth for. We're here to let our light so shine before men that they may see our good works and glorify our Father who's in heaven. We can't do that if we don't show up.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Feminine Glory Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Lydia Edmonds, and I'm joined by my delightful co-host, Esther Edmonds.
Hello everyone.
And we have a very special guest on the podcast today to talk about a very important subject, so let's jump right into it.
Yes, so today we have on the podcast Elizabeth Landis. She graduated from The Ohio State University with a master's degree in French. She and her husband Greg have 5 children whom they homeschooled K through 12. In 2016, a local issue pulled her into the civil realm, and she has been uncovering the forgotten realm ever since. She currently works as assistant to the president at New St. Andrews College, where she founded the college's Civics Club in 2020. So Mrs. Landis, welcome, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This is an honor.
So I guess first we should talk about kind of a brief overview of what the book is about, and then kind of what got you specifically involved in the civil realm in the first place.
Oh, sure. The book is an attempt to educate American Christians on how our American system of government works. And so that's the goal, how to learn the structure of our government and how to wisely engage in it. And it's not just a handbook for local government, but it's all levels of government. And so it's uncovering the system. I pieced it together bit by bit for my American Christian brothers and sisters in Christ so that we can begin to engage wisely in the civil realm.
Yes, I love
It has
that.
been, for those who haven't heard about the book or haven't read it, it has been such a huge help, especially to me and Lydia. We were just talking about before we started the podcast that we started getting involved in politics a couple months ago. Some of our listeners, you guys may have seen our video about us heading down to the Georgia State Capitol for the Georgia Prenatal Equal Protection Act. And then it really just uncovered for us how much we have forgotten the civil realm, and especially at the state level. And so we were just discussing with Elizabeth how helpful her book was to us, because we didn't know exactly what we were doing, and we were discussing like how can we figure out how to get more involved in all of that. And this book, we heard about it on Come Over for Dinner. We had Bess Hawthorne on the podcast as well, and we were just telling Elizabeth this book has been such a huge help to us. So it really is. If you do not know how to start, it's a wonderful handbook to begin. So, Elizabeth, do you have any comments on that specifically you'd like to add?
I just tried to write it so that I can actually take the reader by the hand and we can enter the civil realm together. So the tone is very casual. I actually had an attorney friend who said to me, "Oh, Elizabeth, the tone, it's so casual." But that's on purpose. I want it to be accessible because I think that we are on the verge of losing our republic. It's that serious. And I've become more and more convinced, even after the book has been written, that we must educate ourselves on the structure of government. We spend our time talking about issues, and that seems to be really big, especially with our social media. But the fight doesn't lie in the issues initially. It lies in understanding the structure of our American system. That way we can move laterally, or we can move up or down in the system, and we can actually accomplish things because we know how to operate, how to function.
Absolutely.
Would you say that kind of much like being in the Bible and then understanding biblical categories in that sense helps you discern what's going on in the world? Being informed about the civil realm makes the issues even more clear, so it's not just like all this emotion tied up in it?
Absolutely. So it settles down emotion, but it also provides solutions, because we have three branches in our government for a purpose, and we have different levels. Power has been separated out. It's not a centralized government. We're not a national government. We're a federalist government. And so power has been decentralized, which means there's a complicated system to learn. But once you know the system, then you know where to go. If you're having problems in one branch, you can go to another branch. If you're having problems in one level, you can go to a level above and seek help.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what specifically made you want to write the book on the civil realm, and kind of discuss how you got involved in the civil realm in the first place?
Well, I had fire at my back. And when we have fire at our back, we get busy. And
yes,
so my lifestyle was threatened, and I had to figure out what to do really quickly. And so that was the beginning of uncovering the civil realm in my family's life. And we all took a part in my family, and my part ended up, first of all, it was being a spokesperson for people in our county, because we were in a very rural county, and being a homeschool mom, I've tried to have my children speak. So I could be a spokesperson for the county, and that was the blessing that God had used homeschooling for in my life. And then after that issue was behind us, that was actually 10 years ago this month that all fired up. Then I moved across the country, and my husband, my kids, and an attorney friend all said, Elizabeth, you should write a book, because Americans do not know our system of government.
Yeah, absolutely. Which truly is so sad when you think about it, because when you read your book and you're pointing out from scripture, like, no, we have a duty here. It's like, well, it was there all along and I totally missed it, but we all have a Bible. And so it truly is sad that we have forgotten the civil realm. Okay, so in some of our past episodes, we have discussed this idea of Kuyperianism and the three spheres of sovereignty, and which you did a great job laying out in your book. So in light of the concept of sphere sovereignty, could you talk specifically about the hot topic of the separation of church and state, and how we as Christians should think about that topic?
Yes, well, the first thing to remember is that saying, the separation of church and state, is not in the Constitution. It's not constitutional talk. So if you see the adjective unconstitutional put between those phrases, just know it's not there. It is found in a letter that President Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptists of Danbury, Connecticut, an association who contacted him, and he was responding to them. It was written, he sent the letter January 1st, 1802, and he does mention a wall of separation. And what he was referring to, in the back of my book, in the appendix, I actually have a draft letter that he didn't send, and in that there's some things in italics that he scratched. But what he mentions is that the executive of another nation was also the head of the church for that nation. And what he was referring to is the monarch of England, or Great Britain, is also the head of the Church of England. And that is not the case in the United States. And so the separation there is that we don't have a church of the United States. But that doesn't mean that Christianity isn't fully embedded in the United States, and belief in God. For example, you often hear that Thomas Jefferson was a deist, but he was in a camp that's very far removed from those of us today who are surrounded by atheists. He did have a faith in God, and he mentioned God 4 times in the Declaration of Independence. And so, endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, the judge of the universe, he mentions 4 times, 4 references to God. And so obviously he's not separating the principles of faith from governance. What he's doing is saying we don't have a state, or we don't have a national church. We did at the time have state churches and state sanctioned churches. But that's because, again, that division of power, that decentralization, a state could make religious claims for church affiliation or statements of faith, but the federal government could not.
Okay. So more of, I think you reference this in your book, but more, it was also even more like having those two separate in that way that you described is more of a protection to the church rather than the other way around.
Correct. Okay. So it's not a separation of Christianity and state. It's not a separation of morality and state. It's that we don't have a federal church, and so church is protected. And then clearly stated in the First Amendment, the Establishment Clause.
So in your book, you discuss this concept of dual citizenship. Could you unpack what you mean by dual citizenship?
Yes. Usually we think it's having citizenship in two different nations, but because this book is written for American Christians, what I'm referring to is we have citizenship in heaven through Christ, and then we have citizenship on earth through our American citizenship. And God has called us to serve him in both places as well at once, which he makes clear, Jesus makes clear when he teaches us to pray, that God's will would be done on earth as it is in heaven. And we'll leave God to making all of the connections of how that's done, but our job is to be serving him in both realms.
Absolutely. Another topic that you discuss in the book, which I really love, is the idea of a fourth realm and how the other three are, quote, predicated on this assumed fourth realm. So could you unpack what in the world the fourth realm is?
Yes. So the fourth realm is governing ourselves, self-government. And so first of all, in our daily lives, we're able to do that through Christ because of the fruit of the Spirit and the wisdom that God gives us through his Spirit. And so we don't give in to our lusts. We learn as we grow in Christ to not give in to our feelings. But as Americans, we also have a whole entire nation based on the principle of self-government, that we govern ourselves. And we do that by electing those to represent us. And then it's our job not to just wash our hands of them after they're elected, but actually to speak into their lives, to provide them with information that they may not have, and to encourage them as they go.
Yes. Would you say most people looking to enter the civil realm view it, I think you touched on this a bit in your book, but kind of view it as it is a career in politics?
Yes. Okay. And our American system was created to not be a career politician system. It's meant to be served in terms. And so for official service, being elected or appointed, it's not really supposed to be a lifetime career. But for those of us who are not in office, it is a lifetime career to be aware of what our founding documents say, to watch our government, because it's their job to secure our liberties. And that notion has really gone by the wayside lately. And that's where, as Christians, we really need to zero in. How are our liberties being treated? And anyway, I could keep going there, but we govern ourselves, and we're a republic. This might get to your next question. We're not a democracy. We hear in the media all the time we're a democracy, and we're not. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution guarantees every state in the Union a Republican form of government. And by definition, that means we elect those who govern on our behalf.
Absolutely. And that's extremely important, because then if you don't, then you would just have anarchy, basically, and that's the rule of the people.
Yes, mob rule, which the founders were, and the framers of the Constitution were very concerned that we not have mob rule. And again, mob rule isn't ruled by self-governing features, it's ruled by feelings and reactionary thought.
Yes. So why do you think people do kind of favor the term democracy now?
Well, I think the media has a lot to do with it, uh, and there was a time in our nation, the early colonies, that direct democracy worked great. So in New England, we have town government, and the town government is the closest model. That and also the initiative that can be put on a ballot by the people are the closest things to pure democracy in America. So it works on a small scale, but as we get larger, we have to diffuse power and delegate it. And so I think that's part of it. And then it depends what adjectives we use to describe democracy. We could be called a representative constitutional democracy, and I don't have a lot of problem with that. But I think the word democracy needs to be qualified with terms like based on a constitution, based by those who represent us on our behalf, not representing ourselves directly.
Gotcha.
So if someone doesn't have the conviction that they should be involved politically, then how would you kind of give them a quick biblical argument for why they should be involved in politics, and especially locally?
Well, we could go back to those Kuyperian realms, spheres, and we could say, well, God has ordained the sphere of the family. Check, we're involved in that. God has ordained the sphere of the church. Check, we were involved in that. God has ordained the civil realm. If we spend all of our time in church and family every night of the week or in our free time, what's becoming of the civil realm? Where's the salt and light there? Where is Jesus at the table there? Why do we throw up our hands and wonder why our culture is such a mess if we've abdicated from being salt and light in one of those three realms? And so the responsibility lies with us, and it requires a rethinking of what we're here on earth for. We're here to let our light so shine before men that they may see our good works and glorify our Father who's in heaven. We can't do that if we don't show up. And so we want to walk the way Christ walked when he was in the civil realm, when he ate with the publicans and the sinners, when he righted wrongs, when he spoke truth. And it's hard there because we haven't been there, and so we're uncomfortable. It's foreign to us, but it's on us to find out, when does our government meet? And you say, oh, well, which level, Elizabeth? Well, pick your level. You can read the book and pick your level, which is what I encourage the readers to do in the conclusion. And so then find out which branch of that level you're interested in. Find out when that branch meets. Go to the meetings. Keep people there accountable. They're very uncomfortable when someone shows up and is taking notes in the audience. And what if 10 or 20 people showed up and took notes in the audience? We really can have a reformational impact if we think about the fact that our government is being run by people who need to know Jesus Christ. We know him, but we don't show up. And so if we can go, it takes time, and it doesn't happen quickly. It's a long game, and it means reorganizing our schedules. We might have to give up choir. We might have to give up a Bible study. We might have to give up a fellowship group. And then we replace that with something in the civil realm.
Yes,
Absolutely.
So what role would you say that the book of Proverbs would play on someone who wants to enter into the world of politics?
Well, the same role it has in the realm of the family and the same role as the realm of the church. How do we handle church problems and church government? We're taught in the beginning of Proverbs to cry out for wisdom. God likes to be asked. And so that's the first thing about Proverbs, is we have to break down the pride to think we've got this. And we have to realize, no, we don't have this. God has this. And then we just immerse ourselves in the book. And then God uses various truths. He brings them when we need them. Let's see. I'll just see if a few come to mind here. By long forbearance, a ruler is persuaded, and a gentle word breaks a bone. So we like to think picketing breaks bones, or advertisements or yard signs, but long forbearance, that means showing up. That means investing in the ruler's lives. And it also, a gentle word breaks a bone. And the only way we can have a gentle word is through the Spirit. So that's one example from the book of Proverbs. Do you see a man who excels in his work? He'll stand before kings. He'll not stand before mere men. People who are outstanding at, let's say, accounting, finance. We have public budgets at every level of government. Many of them are obscured from our view. We need people to be analyzing those, because budgets drive policy. And if we don't know what's going on in the budget, we don't know where our tax money is going. We don't know how the policy is being driven. You see a man who excels in his work in finance, he can stand before kings. He won't stand before mere men. We need people like that.
Absolutely.
Because especially going back with the money, I mean, our money is a talent that can be used. And so we're responsible for what people do with the money that we have acquired.
Absolutely.
So going on to Christian diplomacy is a key topic in your book. Would you mind explaining what Christian diplomacy is, as well as its different facets, which are subtlety, winsomeness, mustard seed approach, and an educated faith?
Yes, Christian diplomacy is basically a term that I came up with during COVID when I saw the reactionary way that people entered government. And they hadn't been attending meetings, and then they would come in angry and almost shaking a fist. And one night I saw a man enter a city council meeting and accuse the councilors of giving themselves a raise. And he just went on, and they hadn't. There was no raise in sight. So after observing different levels of government and observing what was successful and what worked, I realized as Christians, we need to be diplomats. We need to engage wisely. And so I thought, well, what are some of the qualities that we need to have? Well, we need to be subtle, especially when we don't understand how the government works. The best way to come in is quietly. Take notes, observe, watch, read, learn. We need to be, we don't need to be winsome, but if we want to win, there's a reason winsome has the word win in it. The winsome has fallen on really hard times, and so I get a lot of pushback on it. Somehow it implied in people's thought that means that you compromise your principles. And I in no way am in favor of compromising principles. But I also think we don't have to go in with a hard chin and looking for a fight. So a dash of sunny disposition could be a very useful thing in today's political environment. Let's see, the mustard seed approach. Things start small. The way God works with them, they start small, and he causes them to grow and flourish, very much like the kingdom. And I think this is a piece in his kingdom. We've got subtlety, winsomeness, mustard seed, and an educated, informed faith. And that's where, again, going back to read the book of Proverbs daily. Immerse yourself in God's word so that you have a response for life as it comes to you. You know, I think of Hannah in 1 Samuel chapter 2. She prays and she says to God, I smile at my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation.
So would that also, these 4 steps, be really important too, and help if you were praying daily like we've been called to pray for the people in leadership above us?
They're a little bit more how you conduct yourself in person. When you pray for them, you know, tend to go running, and there's a path in my town that is nice to go on. And I think of the proverb, the path of the just is like the shining sun that shines ever brighter to the perfect day. And when I pass people on the path, we're in a land grant university, and there are a lot of various beliefs here. I pray for the souls of the people who pass me. And I also pray for the people that sit on the councils that I observe, the county commissioners, the elected county executives, the city council members, the mayor, the local level bureaucracy that really runs things, especially at the city level. I pray for our representatives at the State House. They're only in session 3 months of the year, but they're busy serving us all those other months. I pray for the national level. I pray for the elected executives at the state level. There's so many. So you can be as bold and loud as you want with God as you pray for those people.
Absolutely. So for people kind of looking to get involved, and they're just kind of figuring out all this knowledge, and they're reading your book, and they're realizing there are definitely steps to follow, and perhaps feeling a bit like overwhelmed and finding balance between all of this, all of the different realms, how would you encourage them just to remain hopeful and just to basically be obedient to God?
It is a lot to learn, especially since as Christians we really haven't had a curriculum to learn our government from. And so we can get overwhelmed, but that's why I built the book. Chapter 1 is just introduction to the realms and such. Chapter 2 is an overview of the entire system. So you can get an overview in a chapter, but then I dive down to the bottom and go to the local level, to the city, and then build up from there to the county, and build up to something called special districts, which almost no one knows what they are, who represents us there, what in the world our money's being spent for there, and what the policies are. And then state government, which is just a flurry of activity, and that's where the Constitution's given us so much power. So the state government chapter is the longest chapter in the book. And then national government, I'm a little bit lighter on because the media takes it upon itself to make sure that we understand who's there. But I still lay it out. And then voting in elections, because we need to know that every year is an election year, and sometimes more than once in a year. And we need to learn how to get along with each other in our two-party system, especially within a party. And then Christian diplomacy. And I think the best chapter of the book is the conclusion.
So for someone... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It just brings it all together. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was going to say, so what would be some practical tips? I know you give plenty of practical tips in the book, but what would be some specifically for any of those listening that want to get involved specifically locally in their area? How can they begin to consume news and information about it in order to be involved and be informed?
Well, every level of government is supposed to have a public website. And so type in the name of your city and government, and then find the website for that. And then within that website, there will be all sorts of information. So again, you want to look for the word government. Do that, the same thing with the county level. Now, you might be in a state that doesn't call them counties. You might be in Louisiana that calls them parishes, or Alaska that calls them boroughs. You might be in Rhode Island that doesn't have any, or you might be in Connecticut that doesn't have counties. They moved away from counties in the 1960s, but they still have regional planning councils. And so those are called county equivalents, all of those different names. So look for your county level and go to that meeting of government. Find out when your state legislature meets, and go to your state capitol and watch it in session live if you can. If not, one of the blessings of COVID was that the state houses are now usually live streamed or recorded. And also you can watch C-SPAN and see what goes on at the national level. So observe the levels, read the chapters, and figure out what interests you. Where is God calling you to invest in our American system to help keep our republic? When Benjamin Franklin came out after the Constitutional Convention, there was a lady who stopped him and said, Dr. Franklin, what sort of government do we have now? And his response was, a republic, if you can keep it. And I think that's where we are at the if you can keep it. Mm-hmm. And so it's up to us to keep it by God's grace. And there's a man who wrote an endorsement in the front of my book, and he said, reinforcements are sorely needed. And I would say, amen. We need reinforcements. One person cannot watch and hold accountable every level of government.
Absolutely. So, in one of the appendices in the back of your book, you discuss the concept of civic parenting and the importance of bringing children up with the rich knowledge of the civil realm. So, on a practical level, we'll start first with what did civic parenting look like specifically for you?
Well, I didn't know the system. I hadn't written the book. But my husband and I, he asked me to homeschool with our first one. And it took me a while to get on the bandwagon. And once I was on, I was on. But one of the big complaints that homeschoolers hear is they're not socialized. They're not able to navigate in the social arena. So we made it a family priority to have our children involved in activities in addition to church activities. So we chose 4-H, and we chose youth theater and youth art projects. There were other things, but those were the recurring ones. And so that took us out of the comfort zone of our Christian friends, and that made us minister to others who were not like us. And so that was a great experience. Mm-hmm. And then through that, I write in the civic parenting appendix, my daughter was in a play, and she dressed up in costume. We had an appointment to go meet the mayor, but that got canceled. And she was so disappointed. I said, well, let's just go anyway and leave him some tickets at the office. And we were there talking to the secretary, leaving the tickets, and in comes the mayor. And the two of them walked back into his office, and she stayed completely in her Cockney accent. It was for Oliver. And she went off with him. Oh, Governor, I'd be glad to visit with you. Yes, sure. And off they went. But I really didn't understand the things that a mayor did at that point. I just thought there should be connection, and that those who represent us should be invited to the things that we do. And he and his young wife came to the play. I remember my kids sent him Valentines when they were little, and we're still friends. We still keep in touch over the years.
Wow.
So there was a book that I read to them that I didn't realize had such an impact on them, but it was called What If Everybody Did? And it was illustrated humorously, like, what if everybody dropped a tack on the floor? And then there's a picture with all sorts of spikes coming up off the floor, and nobody can walk around because everybody dropped a tack. And they said that had such an impression on them. And even to voting today, what if everybody did? As the franchise, the vote has expanded. It's expanded from white male property owners over time to include the freed slaves, and then women, and then 18-year-olds. And so that's called the expansion of the franchise. But the really interesting thing is, as the franchise has expanded, the citizen engagement has changed inversely. So you have an inverse proportion. So fewer and fewer people are actually even just voting, and it's just a sad state of affairs. So
yeah. So what do you think kind of would be the fruit of children being raised in that environment of having a knowledge and knowing how to interact in the civil realm?
Well, they're comfortable going up and talking to those who represent us, introducing themselves. I taught our children when we went out in public that you represent a triune God, you represent your dad, and you represent homeschooling, because at that time it was more rare than it is now. So when you go out, people are going to be looking at you, seeing that you are agents representing God, your dad, and homeschooling. And so that made them stand up and realize, oh, I can't just act the way I want to act. I represent people. And so they can relate to those who are representing them.
That's really, really good. So speaking of, how would you respond to someone who thinks that women specifically have no part to play in the civil realm?
Well, I'd probably respond with a question. Have you ever read the book of Esther? And
Yeah.
God uses us where we are. You've probably heard this saying, do what you can where you are with what you have. And one of the questions we should ask God is, what have you put me here to do? And I'm sure Esther was wondering that. My goodness, being in a harem. I mean, but she followed the path that God had put her on, and it led her right straight to the heart of the civil realm, and to, in the end, saving the life of the king. It led to saving the life of her people. And we shouldn't think that we're any different. God has put us on this earth for a certain amount of time. We don't have forever on this earth. We have forever elsewhere. But we only have so much time. And there are a lot of problems and a lot of messes around us. And we have a high calling. And we've been given everything. God promises us everything in Christ. And so my pastor likes to say, when we're with God, it's almost like we're cheating, because he promises us everything. Verse I really like in the civil realm is, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what's in the darkness, and light dwells with him.
So good. So what do you think, kind of, if you could lay out a vision for what we would see kind of across our nation if people started getting involved in the civil realm?
Oh, I see another revival, a great awakening. I see that people come to Christ when they understand that Christians aren't monsters, and we're not just lurking in the shadows ready to pounce, but we have salt and light. We have answers. We have joy. We have healthy families. We know the God of the universe. We know that he sent his son to do for us what we can't do, so we're not a prideful people. I just see that the gospel has another run in our country. And I see this too with immigration. You know, we can think about the civil realm in terms of law and policy, and take that with illegal immigration. It's a mess. But I also see it in terms of the Great Commission, and the nations have streamed to the United States of America. What are we going to do with it? I'm not a preacher. I can't do that, but I can encourage others. I think the answer to our immigration problem is open air evangelism. I think we can have another George Whitefield type situation where we have people preaching outside and others hearing the gospel in real time, not on social media, and coming to Christ. So I'm very hopeful, unless I get pretty tired and then I get discouraged. but we have great reason to hope.
Absolutely.
I was actually going to ask, how has it been for you just coming under this conviction and then being involved and then doing everything that you're a wife, you're a mom, you were homeschooling. How has it been just taking this journey of getting more involved in the political realm and then writing this book? How has that been for you?
How to answer. My knees wobble sometimes. Sometimes my shoulders start to bend. But I remember that God calls us, each of us, to a calling, that He has appointed activities for us to do. And when we find them and when we do them in His power. Then those knees that started to buckle, those shoulders that were sinking, He lifts them back up and strengthens us. So I would say mine is a strange life, and I've seen people become activists and they lose their families. I don't want to become an activist. I've been an activist against green energy, and this is a much more encompassing, life-giving calling, is that we can serve our families, we can serve our churches, and we can serve the civil realm, and we can do it all in God's strength, by His grace, to His glory.
Absolutely. Just as a kind of a follow-up to what she said, out of curiosity, how long did it take you to actually write The Forgotten Realm?
Well, I in the neighborhood of 5 years.
Okay. Wow.
So in that time, as you've been researching, what were some of your favorite books that you read or that you have read since then, specifically on the civil realm, that have really been helpful and beneficial to you?
Well, I couldn't find the book I wanted, which is why I had to write it. I looked, and I hoped it was out there. So there wasn't exactly one on the civil realm. There is an interesting one, though, that was helpful, and I had to write down the title. I never can remember the title. It's A User's Guide to Democracy, How America Works, and it is written by liberals. But it's an interesting book to see their perspective, and it's sort of like my book, but not quite. So that one's interesting, and I think that's worth a read, just to see the difference. Liberals like to brandish their rights, and we Christians, it's about serving and assisting. So there's a difference in approach there. The Bible, obviously. And then there was a book by Tony Woodleaf called I, Citizen. It's kind of a play on We the People. And that was interesting in that it showed that there's a wide middle ground of people in the United States, that we're not as polarized as the media makes it look. And there's a lot of ministry that can take place on that middle ground. Not that we become centrists, but that we can minister to the people who are in the center. Let's see. Now, I'm reading one currently that I absolutely love, and it's by McClellan. Let me see. I think his name is James. Yes, James D. McClellan, and it's called Liberty, Order, and Justice, and it's phenomenal. We have been given a bad narrative on our founding documents, and McClellan helps set some of that straight.
That sounds very interesting. I'll have to look that one up.
Out of curiosity, I know you talk about in your book kind of the importance of being informed, obviously why you wrote the book. We need to be informed and then kind of get involved. What would be your advice to people who it's kind of the reverse? So something comes up and they kind of can immediately get involved in certain situations, and then it's a catch up kind of on being informed after that.
I think that's the normal way it happens. Francis Schaeffer says that, we're not going to get involved until our lifestyles are threatened. My book is a call, hey, could we give it a try? I would say where we really need to be headed is in educating the youth. And I came across 3 godly Christian young people, all 3 educated at a land-grant university, and not one of the 3 of them knew that we had a state constitution. And so I think we have dropped the ball with educating our youth on the blessings of America and how power is diffused, and what the documents are. And so I think that's the next place to concentrate.
Which, speaking of educating the youth, let's talk a little bit about the Civics Club. So what are you doing, and what's your kind of overall mission with the Civics Club at NSA?
Well, I started the Civics Club in 2020 because there was a group of seniors who were going to graduate who didn't know how to engage. And so I started it to help them do that. We're in our 6th year, I think, going to start the 7th year. We've covered the different levels of government, but we're really focusing on the state level. And I'd just like to put out there for your listeners, most of our laws that we live under are decided by our state legislature. And often we don't even know the name of our state legislature. If you Google something for state legislature, you often come up with answers for Congress. You'll get your congressional delegation listed for the names of your representatives. And so, and yet the State House is just a flurry of activity. We need conservatives testifying in committee on proposed bills. We need to hear from our conservative contingent. So read chapter 6. We've got a lot of work to do at the state level.
So what is next for you, and how can people keep up with you and what you're doing?
Well, next I'm in the thick of putting finishing touches on the curriculum. It's called the Civil Realm, Civics for American Students. And I'm also working on Introduction to Founding Documents book. I have the name of that one here because I have to learn it. Foundations and Liberty, the founding documents that shaped American freedom. I call it Intro to Founding Documents, but that's the title of that. I'm not on social media. I don't like social media. I don't like that people will say things that they won't say to your face. I don't like that Christians will go on tirades. I think if you have enough time to be on social media, you have too much time. If you don't have time to read The Forgotten Realm, the first thing maybe to stop is social media. Now, all that to say, that doesn't mean I won't be on it. But right now, my website is more of a frozen nature. It's civilrealm.com. And we'll be putting more things at civilrealm.com. And you can reach me at elizabeth@civilrealm.com.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This was absolutely fantastic. And thank you for all the time and effort you have put into trying to get people involved and educated and for the fantastic book, The Forgotten Realm.
Well, thank you for having me, and thanks for doing this podcast, and thank you for your work.
Of course, absolutely.
All right, ladies, until next time, keep pursuing feminine glory, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Feminine Glory Podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Well, everyone, this is the everyone's favorite part of the podcast, where we ask you to like and subscribe our videos because YouTube likes us to. So we're doing it. And Apple Podcasts likes us too. Wherever you find our channel.
You are in favor, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Or you don't have to.
You can just walk away.
And we won't be offended.
Nope. If you don't like us, just walk away. Don't feel like you need to say anything. Don't feel like you need to explain yourself. Let's just do a clean breakup. You go walk away. And you don't ever have to listen to us again. So there you go.
So if you feel so obliged, you can like it, you can subscribe, or you can go on your merry way.
Yep. Either way, the choice is up to you. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood.
Will you take the one less traveled by?
Will it make all the difference? Whether you listen to us or not. Anyway, there you go. There's our little bit that we had to say to subscribe.
All right.
So thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.